Kia ora, ladies and gentlemen. This is Leonard Hong for the Ultimate Growth Experience podcast. Today, for the 7th episode, we have today Nationalist MP Melissa Lee. She is a fellow Korean Kiwi like myself. So she entered Parliament following National's victory in 2008. Her election made her the first Korean to hold office outside of Korea, and New Zealand's first MP of Korean descent. Born in South Korea and growing up in Malaysia, Melissa moved to New Zealand as a young adult in 1988. Melissa's background and experience has ensured her place as a strong advocate for New Zealand's diverse ethnic communities. Melissa's parliamentary career follows more than 20 years' experience in New Zealand journalism in both print and television. Melissa also enjoyed 15 years as a presenter and producer on TVNZ's Asia Dynamic and Asia Down Under with 600 episodes to her credit. Melissa holds a Master of Arts with first-class honours in Communication Studies and has held positions as a Vice President of the Korean Society, Vice President of the Korean Women's Association, Board Member of the Asia Pacific Producers Network, Advisor to the National Unification Council of Korea, and an Asian Advisor to the Auckland Police. Melissa, welcome to the Ultimate Growth Experience podcast.
Thank you very much, Leonard.
So, you are currently the second Korean and the first Korean woman before Young Kim to win election to a non-Korean national legislature. So how and what got you motivated to enter politics?
I think there's a few others before Young Kim, actually. I apparently am the first woman of Korean heritage to become a member of parliament outside of Korea. But there's also Yona Martin in Canada, a senator. There's also a couple of others, places like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and then Young, I guess, is the first Korean woman, hopefully, to win at the moment. Her results haven't actually been declared because it's a little tight, but I'm hoping that she actually finally get there, which is great. What motivated me? I guess, you have to go right back to when I was a child, I guess. When teachers ask you when you are a child in classroom what you want to be when you grow up, and most of my contemporaries would say things like, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a policeman. And me as the youngest and the shortest kid in class, when it came to my turn, I had the loudest voice, by the way, and I declared that I wanted to be the first female president of South Korea.
You told me that.
And I remember boys actually turning around and says, girls can't be president. I said, yes, girls can't do anything. And I remember getting into a fight with a couple of the boys, and it wasn't pretty. But I guess I've always sort of believed that girls can do anything. My parents actually told me that girls can do anything. And that's what I wanted. And so when I met the first female president of South Korea a couple of years ago, when I had an opportunity to go back, I told her that she had my job. So she wasn't quite sure what I meant. I said, yeah, that's where I wanted to be, And but my parents actually moved me from Korea to Malaysia, and then subsequently I moved to Australia and then to New Zealand. So I guess becoming the first female president of Korea, basically the dream disappeared with my loss of residency and my citizenship of Korea, because for Korean people, as in order to become New Zealand citizens, we have to give up Korean citizenship. So I had to do that. I gave up my Korean citizenship to New Zealand to become a New Zealander and ultimately become a New Zealand Member of Parliament.
There's still the Prime Minister job of New Zealand that's still on the table, if I'm honest, you could say that. So, you were a TV presenter when you were young, so why did you get into journalism?
Did you just say when I was young? That's only 10 years ago.
You still look beautiful, Melissa. Let me just make that clear to the audience. So why journalism, though? I mean, so just going back to...
why journalism? I guess I have an uncle who was a journalist. My grandfather, my mother's family actually ran newspapers in Korea. And I guess you could say that it's sort of in the blood to a degree. So after university, I studied journalism and public relations as well, and I was sort of thinking, well, what do I want to do? And I saw an opportunity, to apply for a job as a reporter, and I thought, why not? So I did. I applied for a job, and the first job I applied, I went to interviews and I made finalists, but I didn't quite get the job. But a couple of weeks later, the editor actually contacted me and asked me if I was still interested in the job. I said, sure. So I started at Sunday News, and I was...
And this was in New Zealand?
In New Zealand, and yeah, pretty much, straight out of uni and, going on to a job as a reporter. And, I was very, very young and very naive. I mean, you're talking about a Korean girl who's never really been let out of the house, right? Literally, if I was to go to the movies, my parents had to like either accompany me or actually send a chaperone. So I led a very sheltered life, and to become a reporter, and I was a master of my own destiny now, and having to cover stories about people's lives which are so different. It was a huge learning curve for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think one of the things that I motivated me was I wanted to beat the boys because beat the boys because I was the only female, and I think there was Jill Nicholas in Rotorua, who was a senior reporter, only other female reporter in Sunday News, and I was the only one in Auckland, and I was the only Asian, and I guess I wanted to prove that I can actually do the job. That I did actually speak English, and then I can actually cover stories, and I can actually write. Yeah.
And this was in the 1980s, yes?
Yeah, late 80s.
Oh yeah, so that was when it was getting better, but not enough. Well, now when you look at the current Congress in the United States, and when you look at the current New Zealand legislature, you could say that a lot of progress has been made, right?
In terms of diversity, definitely.
Yes,
I mean, back in the 80s, I was the only female Asian reporter, and I don't think you would actually find another one, not even in the Herald or any other organization. I think, at the Herald there was a fellow Asian reporter, Gilbert Wong. Gilbert was born is actually New Zealand born. There is Andrew Young. So these are some of my contemporaries who actually, I'm sorry guys, I'm actually aging Gilbert and Andrew. But no, there weren't that many Asian reporters out there. And it was actually really dynamic times. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot.
So what did you learn out of that experience then?
The importance of getting facts right. And I'm an old-time journalist.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think the change in the speed, change in technology, I guess, has actually made newsrooms quite different now, and also the different platforms that our media is actually presented on, not only television. It used to be that television, radio, and print were quite separate entities. Now everything seems to sort of converge, and even print is actually going with TV screens right online, and there's actually radio that's actually there's so many platforms converging. So yeah, it's quite different, and the speed at which news is actually carried is also quite different as well. I mean, I remember having to, I worked for a Sunday paper, so you actually literally had to deliver final of the photograph prints down to the printing presses, which was in Hamilton, because we were printed in the Waikato in Hamilton. And so one of the last reporters who was actually on duty had to actually drive the films and copy down to Hamilton. This is before computers, Leonard. You're looking at me quizzically as if like, what is she talking about?
I was born in 1996.
Yeah, exactly. This is like, we're talking about 1989, 90, 91, 92, 93.
This is fascinating.
So we literally had to like drive the photos and everything down to the presses, and the printing presses. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Yeah, the printing.
Read a book about it.
Yeah, all that sort of stuff used to happen. Yeah. Now everybody seems to read everything online. I mean, even I do. I mean, I often read the news, like, online, and then I read it before it actually goes to air. So, there you go.
Damn. Journalism. What a water. So, Melissa, I've known you for a number of years, and I must say you have exceptional charisma and charm. No, really, you do. I mean, we all know the Prime Minister right now, which is in this electorate, Mount Albert. I mean, she's known for that, but you're one of the few people that I know who's had that skill for a while, and obviously that's why a lot of people like you a lot in the Korean community. So how did you develop this skill, this particular set of skills?
Well, thank you for saying that. I'm not so sure if it's I actually believe that or not.
Well, I personally do, and a lot of other people say the same thing.
Thank you very much for that. I guess, I don't know, do I have natural charisma? As a politician, we're all type A characters, so I guess we would like to think that we have charisma, and we'd like to have like some sort of a personality that attracts people to vote for us. I mean, that's the drive, right? I guess, I think I'm genuine, literally. I mean, I think I try and ground myself often, whenever I'm actually sort of doing something, I try and actually go back to my old friends that, you know, knew me before politics, and I occasionally check myself, you know, do you think I'm different to, you know, when you knew me back then, kind of thing. And, you know, and I'm very glad that my friends actually keep me checked and said, you're exactly the same, you haven't changed. And then they look at me and say, what's wrong with you? You're now a politician. Why aren't you, you know, different? And apparently I'm still exactly the same as when I was, you know, back whenever. So, you know, I think I'm glad for that, because I think that means that I'm being true to myself. In terms of, like, you know, how did I develop my personality? I guess it's well, I don't know. It's just me. And in terms of presenting myself, like the way I talk, I mean, I know you've actually commented about the way that I speak in public. You know, speaking in public is a bit of a daunting skill that you have to sort of hone, I guess, to a degree. And one of the things that I always try and do is I look at people. If I get a reaction, then, you know, I know that I'm actually on the right path. If people are falling asleep, then I know that I've done a terrible job. So I try and actually keep a check on it. But I guess, you know, speaking in public, I've always done that, you know, right from when I was young. I used to MC, you know, community events like you did for the Korean Society.
Not a good job as you.
You know, I think you did a really decent job. And I mean, I used to do it for our church, you know, at our Christmas estate, and, you know, school performance, and I used to dance for the school, and I used to, you know, sing and all kinds of performances. I guess being able to build the courage to actually stand in front of people and perform, I guess, is something that I've actually done, you know, ever since I was young. So that's okay. I guess speaking, I admire people who can articulate way better than I do. I think my vocabulary is actually not as honed or well versed as some of my colleagues, you know, like Chris Finlayson. I mean, Christopher Finlayson, oh my God, he's such a beautiful speaker. And even Jerry Brownlee, I mean, the way they speak, I watch them in awe. They're just such beautiful orators, and they're so quick-witted. And I wish I had that, and I just don't think I do. But hey, you know, some people are born lucky.
Nah, it's still pretty damn good as far as I'm concerned. So you're telling people that they should constantly step outside their comfort zone. They should try and do things that are new. They should, I don't know, maybe Toastmasters? Is that a good idea?
I've never done Toastmasters, so I can't tell you to actually go and do it. But the thing is, if you find an opportunity where you can actually stand in front of people to actually speak, do it. You know, challenge yourself. Scare yourself shitless. You know, I think that you learn. I mean, if you don't, how else are you going to push yourself, right? I mean, even now, you know, I get butterflies in my stomach every time I get up to speak. You know, I get nervous, but as soon as I open my mouth, the butterflies disappear.
Boom.
Right? It's that nervous energy thing. You know, maybe I thrive on it. I don't know. I mean, I used to be a TV presenter. I mean, every time I go on stage or every time I'm before camera, you know, I get really, really nervous and, you know, quite anxious. And as soon as the cameras start rolling, I become a bit of a natural, you know, and I feel comfortable in front of it. I guess, yeah, that's what happens.
So naturally happens when you repeat the same action over and over again. I think you do. Yeah. Which is exactly the same thing, because every community event or every event I see, you're always there just dazzling away, and I was like, man, I wish I could do like that.
Well, you should do more of it.
Which is what I'm trying to do right now. Yeah. Speaking of that, your dream was to become South Korean president, and you were always driven in this direction, right? And so, like, what was the trigger that probably got you going, besides being that girl out in that male-dominated sort of perception where you can't be this, you can't be that sort of thing. So
I guess another thing is, I guess, you know, I think, you know, often you talk about role models. I mean, you know, Margaret Thatcher, you know, no matter what anybody actually sort of says about her, I mean, I watched her as a young girl. You know, she always had this beautiful suit on, and she was this almighty voice in a very male-dominated environment in British Parliament. And I used to look up to her thinking, oh, wow, that's so cool, right? Because she was. You know, and every woman leader since, you know, Thatcher or even before, you know, I look and go, oh my God, these women had a voice that, you know, were heard. And I admire them tremendously. And yeah.
So Thatcher's one of the so-called political
role models? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, she was elegant as well as, you know, powerful. And yeah, I guess my mom is probably the other one. You know, my mom's always been very, very strong, and she always had she was a leader in the family. You know, but she also had that grace to let my father think that he was the leader. You know, typical Korean family, right? But mom always fought for me. I mean, I remember when I had my hair cut. You know, I was so daggy when I was going to Sunday News straight after university. I had long hair. You know, I had it braided. You know, jeans and shirt, and I look like a teenager, you know, and often even now, a lot of the Korean community people think I'm much younger than I am because they think, they think back to that time when I was first here working, and they see me as, they remember me as a student because I had my hair braided, looking really daggy. But I wasn't a high school student. I had already finished university and I was working as a journalist. But, and I didn't want to look like a dag anymore. And I wanted to sort of spread my wings a little bit and, become a little bit more stylish. And I consulted my mother and I said, okay, I really need to cut my hair, but dad would hate it. So what do I do, Mom? And Mom says, oh, why don't you just go and do it? I said, but Dad won't talk to me if I do. And Mum goes, let's just do it together. And so my mom and I cut our hairs. And I don't think my father talked to us for like a whole month.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I come from that kind of a family. Yeah.
That's a stronghold in particularly East Asian culture. Is that we have this thing where we need to follow the community, not ourselves as individuals. Well, ironically, at the moment, I act like a totally different individual outside that stereotype, which is what got me this project started and other things.
But you're not though. You are, and yet you're not. Because,
that's true. Yeah.
You are bound by what you were raised with.
Yes.
In terms of your culture and your, values that your parents have actually taught you, just like me. And the thing is that no matter how much you actually try and be outside it, you never outside it. You still have that in you. And so you are still yourself a Korean person who was raised in New Zealand with Korean values and the values that your parents have taught you. But you try and push that boundary out a little bit and actually be yourself. And I think that's the important thing. You will never be different. You'll never be non-Korean without Korean values. Yeah.
Totally that. So how did you go from South Korea to Malaysia?
My father worked for the Malaysian government.
Malaysian government?
Yeah.
He's Korean, but he worked for the Malaysian government. Yeah,
just like, back in those days, people have contracts to work for different governments. Yeah.
Dad
had a contract to work for the Malaysian government for 2 years. And then it was an adventure initially for us to actually go there for a couple of years to give us a bit of a Western experience away from Korea. And by the time, he finished the term, it was like, the kids haven't actually learned anything. Maybe we need to extend the contract so they can actually learn something, like speak English, for example. Yeah, so it just got extended until such time that I got to an age where I had to actually matriculate. So I finished fifth form in Malaysia, and my parents actually thought, okay, where shall we actually send her? And then that's how it actually happened. Yeah.
And then you went to Australia in the first place.
Yep.
Interesting.
On my own. My parents were still in
Malaysia. On your own?
Yeah.
Where are they now?
My parents are here.
Oh, they're here. Yeah. Of course. Okay. So I asked this question to a lot of my guests. I asked this to Dr. Don Brash, to Dan Boudoir, to my friend Farley, and they all have a distinct characteristic of their daily habits. So what does Melissa Lee do every single day that's habitual? What time do you wake up? What do you do? Besides the daily activities as a member of Parliament.
I like to wake up later than I actually do.
That's unusual.
Because I think as members of Parliament we actually don't get enough sleep, and often like particularly when we're in Parliament, I mean I don't go to bed until like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm normally in my office around 7:30, latest 8 o'clock. And so like definitely on a Wednesday morning I'm there at 7:15. Different programs, and then the procedure starts at 8:30, and then the day actually starts quite early, and then the house sitting program actually goes till 10 o'clock at night, and then after that you've got select committee papers or portfolio related papers that you need to read, and so you're there trying to actually get through the paperwork, or the emails that actually pile up, and I've got emails coming out of my ears that I need to sort out.
Even now?
Yeah, and you just think, oh my God, at the end of the day, I mean, my EAs, like, Jenny in Auckland always said, you need to have a day off. And then she goes, are you actually going to have a day off, like doing nothing? Doing something for yourself rather than actually work or, going to visit people, to talk to people.
Yeah, because this is the misconception that I hear out of you, and not just you, but other MPs, that people think that it's like a luxury, as in what you're doing is like, oh, this is the salary, this is this and that. And then when I actually listen to you, I find it quite strenuous and quite, I was like, oh God, like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and then going to Parliament, and then flying back and doing this, and then meeting up with communities and responding to emails, and then doing this. So I was like, wow.
Yeah. And you know what? And often, people only see us in events where they see us, attending an event, cultural event, or attending an opening or whatever. But those are actually on top of what you normally do. So what they're judging us is based on the extra bits that we actually do that, have often sometimes have nothing to do with our real work. We are legislators. We are there to make laws for this country. And the thing is that the work is actually there. The select committee papers that you need to read to make sure that we are passing good legislation in the House it's the very base of our work. And then you've got the constituency stuff, and people coming to, even though I'm a list MP, people come and actually ask for help here, whether it's actually immigration, housing, or even some people have even turned up and says, I need a job, can you actually find me a job? I mean, I don't run a job search kind of a business here, but sometimes you think, okay, well, how can we actually help them? Not just that, but I mean, up and down the country, because just by virtue of the fact that I'm ethnic, I'm Korean, it's not just Korean people who actually approach me, up and down the country. It's ethnic people who actually feel a bit more comfortable talking to me for some reason. So they come to me, and I'm not going to say no to them.
Precisely. Yeah, precisely that. Is there anything in Parliament that you say is like Melissa Lee's proudest achievement?
Gosh, one of the things that I actually did, apart from the legislation stuff, I mean, one of the things that I did was to bring Hyun-Seo Lee. She's actually a North Korean defector.
Oh.
And one of the things that I wanted to do was I have a very close relationship with the Korean War veterans, and I have tremendous love for them. And I guess, I've gone to their events even well before I was a member of Parliament. So I've always gone to the ceasefire commemoration parades in Auckland. I've, pretty much, I mean, every year I try and actually get down to the Hamilton Christmas dinner, lunch. And then, I travel up and down the country trying to visit the Korean War veterans, because, there are not many left now. I mean, just this week, I just heard that one of the ones that I visited in New Plymouth actually passed away as well. So it's very sad. But I wanted to actually bring Hyun-Seo Lee, a North Korean defector who wrote a book called A Girl with Seven Names, and I had an opportunity to actually host her in Parliament, together with the Korean Unification Council. So together with the Unification Council, myself, and the Korean Embassy, we actually hosted a big event, a dinner, and invited the Korean War veterans, or diplomats, journalists, and actually, and Hyun-Seo gave a lecture, and I thought that was actually probably one of the best events that was actually held in Parliament. I mean, even my colleagues have actually said, there are so many events that are actually held in Parliament, but that was one of the memorable ones that they've ever turned up to, and quite poignant. I think, and I feel very proud of actually having done that.
And I would have been, well, I didn't see because I was so young back in the day, but that would have been inspiring indeed. So did you have any heroes besides Margaret Thatcher that influenced the young Melissa Lee to get into Parliament or politics?
Well, I think you have heroes throughout your life, whether it's actually your favorite teacher at school, or whether it's actually a sports coach. Growing up, I guess my mom has always been a hero. She never actually had formal education in English, and yet when she left Korea, she learned Bahasa, and she learned Chinese, and she learned English, because that was what she had to do. My dad worked for a Malaysian government, but what was she going to do, just be a housewife? She wasn't satisfied just being a housewife, so she set up a business. So she ran a huge stevedoring business in Malaysia, and she owned supermarkets in Malaysia. So she ran, multi-million-dollar operation where, she hired lots of people, and, she was providing, supplies to the ships that actually came to Malaysian port, and then all of the Korean construction companies that were actually building infrastructure in Malaysia. Mum was supplying all of them with food and whatever they actually needed. So she was actually she was this one woman superpower that actually was doing all of that. Even here, I mean, my parents were the first ones to actually import Korean grocery to New Zealand. And I remember still, every time I finish work at Sunday news, I go home at 5 o'clock. When my friends were going to the pub, I'll be at home typing away. This is before computers, right? Typing all the ingredients, putting labels on. Oh my God, it was such tedious jobs. But the thing is, it's like every time instant noodles came in, it has to be tested. So every time it gets tested, I think it used to cost Mum and Dad $3,000. So the reason why Shin Ramyun comes to New Zealand with no problem at the airport on the border is because we've done the work, and so people, they were the instigators right at the beginning. So I'm very proud of my parents. Yeah, they're inspiring. With no language, no connections, they've done that. Yeah.
I'm just speechless because your mother was an entrepreneur, businesswoman, a multi, what do you call it?
Lingual.
Yes, all of that. That's just incredible, and to do that, and now seeing the daughter as
so she did it all without a lot of help. I mean, she was always there for my brother and I, and it's like, I suppose when it was time for me to get married and have a child, I never actually had help because my mom was one of those superhuman being that, didn't need much help. I'm thinking, I failed,
No.
I didn't quite meet her. I wasn't quite as superpowered as my mother because she could do everything. It was like she could multitask. Yeah, she was inspirational. She was amazing.
My grandmother's sort of like that. Well, you never met my grandmother before, but if she's in New Zealand again, I'll introduce you to her. But she's like this lady who does everything, as in the finances, the this, the that.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know how some people do that.
I know. So it's always like, it was like every time I do something, it's like I look at my mom going, does she approve? Yeah,
That's
it's
me.
One of those. That's me with my mother.
So that's like me with my grandmother. But fascinating. All right. So obviously, you're actually my first female guest on the show.
About time.
I'm trying to get more. I'm trying to get a lot more. So I know a lot of New Zealand women out there who are considering politics as their potential career in the future. I know a lot of friends at high schools, at universities who are even thinking about that. So what advice would you give to young, ambitious women out there who are considering this political pathway as their future career?
I say do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
Don't be scared. Just do it. And the thing is that, there are so many of us, there is now, it's shamefully, it's been 125 years since, women got the vote in New Zealand. I mean, suffragettes, but only 149 women have become members of parliament as of last election, right? And so considering the sheer number of male MPs who have actually gone before us, I mean, the percentage is actually quite low, but I think at the moment, we're sitting on a roughly around 40%. Having said that, it can, from the outside look quite combative, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why women tend not to sort of go pop positive about it. Go, oh God, it's so combative. It just seems like such a nasty place to be. It can be. It is very combative. It's a combative. It's a combat of ideas, right? And it should be. And sometimes, I've been, I've seen how difficult it can actually get. Whether it's actually through media reporting of something, or whether it's like when you see ministers actually being hammered over mistakes or whatever. It can be quite a difficult situation for them. I'm trying to find nice words to actually describe it. It can be, but the thing is that it is so, how would I call it? It is, I find Parliament such an inspiring place to be. I'm surrounded by people who are so well versed in so many areas, and who have great ideas, regardless of party, affiliations. And I think, I have tremendous respect for all my MP colleagues right across the Parliament, because they go there with a very idea, like me, to wanting to help people and wanting to make New Zealand better. Whether we disagree is something that we can actually debate in the House, but, hey, we're all there with one purpose, to make New Zealand great. And I think anybody, regardless of political affiliations, can actually, if they can actually make that contribution, I say go for it.
And would you say that they should have some level of job experience? Because
I would like that, because I think, when you come to Parliament without any life experience, I think it's very difficult to, one, cope with the demands of the work, and it can be quite a lonely place as well. Because everyone is so determined to do their own thing as well. Even though there is actually a close-knit sort of group of caucus and also, Parliament, but often everybody's doing their things, and it can be quite isolating if you don't know anyone. And also, the other thing is, if you haven't had the life experience, you can't bring that life experience into your work. I think it is very important to do so. How would you actually debate, let's say, for example, talking about, a business, if you want to make things better for businesses, if you haven't actually been in business, how would you know? If you haven't talked to businesses, how would you know? So I would suggest, regardless of what experience they have, I think they should go and work, see life, experience life before you actually come into Parliament. Because if you go straight from university to a political job, I think it's just probably a mistake.
Because I watched a podcast with Prime Minister John Howard from Australia and also Bob Hawke talking together, and they talked about the problem as to how a lot of the new parliamentarians are new individuals who either, for example, in the Labour Party, gone through Young Labour, then unions, and just gradually got in, rather than having like a proper job experience. And so I concur with that completely. Whereas in your party as well, where a lot of them go to Young Nats and then go into the parliamentary services and then get into the list, and I just
not all. I think you would actually find the majority.
Because I'm not knowledgeable.
I think majority of National Party members, you would actually find that they've all had work experience before they actually come. I think there won't be many of the young ones who would have actually come through with no real life experience and having actually come through parliamentary services, for example. For example, Chris Bishop, he worked in, Jerry Brownley's office, but he also worked in the corporate sector as well. Same thing.
Stock's so cute.
What?
His puppy is so cute.
Oh, his puppy, yeah. He comes to work occasionally. No, but I think you won't find many in the National Caucus who have actually, come straight through. But hey, look at the Prime Minister. She came straight. I think her real life work is working part-time while she was at university only, right? She's actually literally come through parliamentary services, and actually now she's Prime Minister. Hey, it works for some, but I think it's much better if you have real life experience.
So for some of what you said, ladies, if you're listening, 1, go for it. 2, get a job experience. Easy, well, not really easy. Not easy, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think get involved. Getting involved is important. You said, you don't want people to come through the ranks, having been in political sort of environment and then going to Parliament. But it is important to have passion about politics, have interest about politics, have interest about what changes, how legislation can impact on your life, your daily life, because it impacts on all of us. And so get involved with your local organisation, whether it's actually Young Nats or Young Labour or Young Greens or whatever. Just get involved and and contribute. And don't be afraid to speak up. I always say to people, I say there is never a dumb question, and often people sort of go, "Oh, I don't want to ask this because people might think I'm stupid." Well, ask it, because I'm sure somebody else is actually thinking exactly the same question.
So, what are your personal aspirations for the future?
I don't have any aspirations to become Prime Minister. I guess I am given an opportunity to do a job, and I like to do it well and as best as I can, and I think I'm doing that. And I have been a government backbencher and now an opposition, member of parliament who's actually, made it into the shadow cabinet. I guess, it's been a natural progression, I guess, to a degree. And I've really enjoyed the process. It's quite weird saying I've enjoyed opposition, but I have. I've been able to ask the right questions and, often get the wrong answer, and been able to actually sort of, tell people that they've given the wrong answer and actually get some result out of it. So that's been quite good. I guess some of my journalism has actually come into it. I guess one day I would love to be a minister. Obviously, I don't think anyone comes into politics thinking that, no, I'm just going to be sitting in the backbenches for the rest of my life. No, I think I like to be a minister. And then eventually, I guess, I don't want to be in politics forever. I never actually saw it as something that, I never saw politics as a lifestyle. I wanted to contribute. I wanted to actually sort of make sure that people have their voice through me, go and serve, and actually make a bit of a difference. And then when the time is actually right, and when people no longer need me, it's time for me to leave. And that's where I see, and until such time that people actually tell me to bugger off, I think I'll stay there for a little while longer, and actually contribute. One day I would, yeah. But hey, how about Governor General of New Zealand? The first ever Korean Governor General of New Zealand. That sounds like a cool thing. Hey, maybe not. I don't know. I guess I never really think about things like that.
Let's let things play out and let's see what happens.
That's what I do.
Yeah,
that's what I do. I don't actually sort of go, 10 years down the line, I'm just going to be doing this. I don't have that kind of thing, but I do have a plan of what I'm doing, and I just keep on going.
Present in the moment and just growing gradually.
And dreaming. Yeah,
of course. Do you have a social media account or something that my followers could find you on?
I do actually. I have Instagram and I have Facebook. I also have Twitter. I think Facebook is Melissa Lee MP. Instagram is, I think, also Melissa Lee MP. And I'm not so sure. Twitter is, I think, Melissa Lee MP. Yeah, I think.
Cool. I'll leave that all in the description. Thank you for joining me, Melissa.
Thank you for having me today.
And good night, everybody. See you later.